Hola, bienvenido to the Green Cards to Greenbacks podcast, hosted by me, Nestor Vargas. I'm here to teach you everything you need to know about using your dinero to create wealth and find money independence. As a kid from Colombia who grew up in a barrio, I got fed up with having money insecurities, so I decided to become a personal finance expert and a certified financial planner. After 12 years of mastering my money skills, I'm ready to share with you how I help million-dollar clients grow their wealth. If you're looking to become a master at managing your dinero, you're in the right place. Now, let's dive into the episode. Alrighty, Rosie, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Nestor. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm excited to learn more about you. I'm excited to also learn a little bit more about how you have dealt with money, what money means to you. And then also I want to hear, and I'm really excited for our audience to hear about the work that you guys are doing at your company because it's really, really amazing. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Rosie, why don't you take a minute to go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rosi, and my last name is Quinones Flores. I'm originally from Peru and moved to the Bay Area in California I've been coming back and forth for like 15 years, and I moved in permanently 10 years ago. It's my home now. So, yeah.
Where from Peru did you come from?
Yeah, so I grew up in the capital city in Lima. Peru is like 30 million people, and a third of that, so over 10 million people live in the capital city because of the virus that was years ago. Then a lot of people immigrated to the capital city, and that's where my parents met. My dad is originally from the North Coast, from Chiclayo, and my mom is from the Andes, from Huancavelica. So I am one of five and grew up in the city, I guess, first generation Limeña. And yeah, when I started coming to the US, I was in my 20s.
Okay, so what ultimately brought you to the US?
I was studying plant sciences, agriculture. So then when I was in my last year, college is normally 5 years in Peru. When I was in my last year, I did an internship at a nonprofit that was connected to UC Berkeley and to a nonprofit in Berkeley. So I started coming and volunteering for them, and then I did an internship, and I met who's now my husband. So now we dated long distance for a while, finished college, came back and forth, he came back and forth, and then I finally moved here.
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting that there's a little connection with UC Berkeley, and that's how you ended up here. You met your husband there. Is he Latino? Is he American? Tell us about your husband.
Mm-hmm. He's not Latino. I keep telling him that he should identify as like Norwegian descent, because like his family is not even like 5 generations in the US, but he looks white and didn't grow up in the Bay Area but had been here for a while, and he was friends of someone who worked at the nonprofit that I was volunteering. We met at a dinner party, and he's a landscaper, so he loves plants, and I studied plant sciences, so then that's what
There's the connection. There's always a connection. I love it. Awesome.
And he speaks Spanish for sure. Yeah.
He does?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he lived in Nicaragua for a while, so he speaks like Nicaragua with a Nicaraguan accent and very like from rural areas, So when he met my family in Peru, everyone was like, "What?
¿Cómo está hablando ese señor? ¿Por qué habla tan malo? ¿Por qué habla así?"
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny,
It was good
man.
that he could communicate with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still trying to teach my wife Spanish, but the little guys, they understand. That's for sure. They understand the language. You got to keep the roots going.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you doing now? What do you do for work now?
Yeah, so I used to work in the coffee industry as a trader, and now I work at Bitwise Industries, which is a tech company that's mission driven. So we try to remove the barriers of entry for people of all backgrounds into, especially Black and brown people from underserved communities, into the tech industry. And I do business development, which is basically like sales and networking with any businesses that need a technology, something created just for them with using technology.
I love it. Yeah, we're going to talk about that a lot more because it's really powerful the work you guys are doing in really helping, communities that are typically underserved get great paying jobs. And that's just really, it's very creative the way you guys do that. Perfect. So, the show is also about money. And, one of the reasons that I always want to talk about money is because a recent study shows that only 5% of the Latinos in the United States are using the stock market to create wealth. And that's just crazy. So, we got to improve that. And I want to educate people on, the stock market and the experiences that people have had. But also, I want to talk about how we identify with money as Latinos. And so I want to start a little more. Let's kind of take a little step back and think about, kind of growing up. What did you learn about money from your parents when you were a little girl?
Yeah, yeah. We all have a relationship with money, right? And it has taken me a long time to understand that my own relationship with money and change it where it helps me instead of the opposite. So my mom and my dad didn't grow up with money at all. They When they immigrated to the capital city, they lived in Victoria, which is was still not the wealthiest neighborhood. And they were teenagers when they met. My dad wanted to study medicine, but he couldn't study medicine because he couldn't afford it. So he studied engineering while he worked as a taxi driver. And by the time he finished college, he already had kids. There's some colleges that are public, like the one I went to and my dad went to. So it's almost free, but you still have to, pay your expenses. So he worked really hard to do that. He's an engineer and he started a company, and my grandpa used to work with him. My uncles used to work with him, and now he has two factories. He manufactures wires out of copper and others. It's, successfully not only in Peru, but like in Latin America in one generation. So he did that
Wow.
in his generation, right? The company is as my oldest sister. So about 40 something years old. Yeah. Yeah. And he's still he's so entrepreneurial. Yeah.
That's
And my
awesome.
mom contributed so much by taking care of us at home, right? Like she actually didn't finish high school until I was 5, 10, until I was a kid. And she wasn't the one managing the money at the house.
Oh.
That's also I've come now that I'm a mother. And yeah. But by the time I was born, so I'm like a third, we had enough. We moved to a wealthier district in Lima. I had access to private education. I had access to English classes. So when I met my now husband, I was excited. And where I was here in the US, I already, had a huge advantage. And I realize that now compared to other people that immigrated to the US. And money, I was always really entrepreneur. I was selling stuff in college. I was I was selling stickers in high school. I was always selling something. And I realized that now looking back. And so then before I graduated, I was already working in my small things were not so formalized, right? But kind of on the side. And then when I moved to the US, I had that connection through the nonprofit that I had interned with. And it was just really hard because I wasn't earning full wages. I was, I mean, I was earning wages. I just was an intern. So my wages were like training wages. And one day we were having dinner with who's now my husband, and he's like, you don't have to order dessert and drinks and the whole thing every time we go out. And I was so embarrassed and upset at the time. Now I understand it because I had not, I had a lot of privilege in Peru that I didn't help here, and I had to figure it out. Yeah. It's
Yes.
been great to have my dad as a plan C or to fall back on, but I've been independent since my 20s. And yeah, so now I manage the finances of our family
That's
completely, actually. And my husband has to deal with being the one that doesn't make as much, I guess. So the roles turned. He did pay for everything while I was in training, and when I immigrated here at first, and now it's the opposite. He's having to adapt to that. But
You're a sugar
I
mama now, huh?
yeah. Hmm?
You're the sugar mama now.
Yeah, providing in multiple levels. I provided my whole body when I brought my baby to the world. I provide milk now, and I'm providing financial aid too. So, like, what I tell him is like, you're providing so much, but taking care of kids and like the house, that's huge. You're providing for us as well. So we've had to manage that. But yeah, money. So when I work at the nonprofit here, it got to a point where I was like, oh, this is not going to work long term. You're overworked, supposedly doing it for a mission because it's a larger mission at a nonprofit. But in your personal lives, you're not succeeding. You're not, it was frustrating. It got to a point that it was frustrating. So then that's when I started to switch to working in coffee trading, and that was really exciting because I care a lot about farmers. I was connected to Peru, Bolivia, Mexico, but I also realized like I have to be compensated for this fairly. And so then that's when I made the transition to tech as well.
I love that story because it definitely shows that you have to be aware of your worth, and you have to ask for what you're worth. And I think definitely, not for profit, it's great to have a mission, but a mission and also personal financial security go hand in hand. If there's a disconnect there, it's never going to work. So that's amazing, kind of a journey that you took, and the fact that the roles have shifted between husband making more money than you, and now you're making more money than husband. I've experienced that as well with my wife back and forth, which is a great thing. I really, if she wants to make more money than I can, absolutely, let's do it. I'm all for it.
Yeah, we're both succeeding as a family. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I think it'd be hard for Latinos. I think, kind of older generation Latinos they're used to that being different. And I think even the generation here in the United States, looking at people that are now 70 years old, because I work with a lot of people who are retired. Typically, the males are the breadwinners, and that's shifting a lot in our economy these days. There's a lot of strong women out there, which I love. I grew up, when I was 7, I came here to the States, and I lived with my aunt, my grandma, and 3 girl cousins. And so I grew up with a lot of strong females around me, which I love. So tell us a little bit more about the stock market. How have you used it? What's been your experience with that as well, investing?
Yeah, as an immigrant to the US, it's a foreign concept completely. Like my dad, to create wealth, he didn't use the stock market, right? And no one that I grew up with did. So when I came here, I got to a company in coffee that had a lot of benefits and had, everyone had families, so you had paid time off. It took me years. Like it took me 2, 3 years in the US to get a job that was like at a professional level where you get all those benefits. So once I did, I started thinking like, oh, 401k, what is it? And it was intimidating at first, but looking back, that's what I've always done. Like, put myself in situations that were new and challenging, and I've made it through every time. So I think they had a one-on-one with financial advisors. I think Fidelity was the one company that they use. And I actually, that person specifically, I didn't like that meeting, I was, because the questions that I had were so basic, so because I came from a different country that doesn't have that system. So it was kind of like the end of my cultural shock, but a financial cultural shock.
Yeah.
And my husband, he's wonderful, but he is not he doesn't like to deal with money in that way. So I was on me to do that for the both of us. But I figured it out on my own, sort of, and started putting money in, especially because we had very low cost of living. We, lived in a co-op house. I could bike to work, and I didn't have a car, we didn't have kids at the time. So I started putting money in. And then I think that 4th year that I was in that company, I was like, oh, this thing is like making money. And I started to get more curious. And then from then it hasn't been to like the past year, so 2021, 2022, that I'm like excited about it, like super curious, looking at different index funds and NASA, following women that are like diversifying the podcast and CNN, Yo Quiero Dinero. But there's a bunch of others, especially women of color. And I realized it was because I wasn't receiving that information from people I could connect with, like yourself. Like I received that information from someone who didn't have the same perspective as me. And so I was like looking for the right messenger for that information has made it really exciting. And of course, having kids has made it so that I want to create wealth, like making
Yeah.
peace with that ambition. To
Yes.
have that ambition and making peace with that ambition, that it's okay. Because I used to work for a nonprofit, and I still, part of my work is working with farmers. So farmers that might depend on the crops, the commodity crops that are very like, they live the
Subsidized.
day to day. They live the day to day sometimes
Yep.
with cash. That's why the pandemic was so hard. And
Yep.
what it means to be in a privileged position where you can't take advantage of something like the stock market, like a 401k, like, all these financial tools. It's like, yes, I have to do that.
I love it. Well, you mentioned someone that I really enjoy and someone that has really helped me out lately. Her name is Janice from Yo Quiero Dinero. I actually was hanging out with her in Orlando a couple of weeks ago, and she mentored me. So if there's any Latinas listening to this podcast and want to listen from a strong New Jersey girl, Puerto Riqueña, Yo Quiero Dinero, go listen to her. She's awesome. She's got great stuff. Alrighty, so congratulations on taking that journey and being empowered and having people work for you, because that's what the stock market is, right? You become an owner of companies and now you have employees. And so you stop trading time for money and now you have that money working for you. And that's really a whole shift of creating wealth as well. It's just we have to figure out ways to stop trading our time for money. And the stock market is one of the easiest ways to do that. Obviously, there's others ways to do that, but the stock market's really easy to do that. So tell me about your experience overall. Has it been positive or negative investing in the stock market?
Yeah, I mean, right now,
Yeah.
to see it go low, it's hard. But it's like a game, right? So if you think about it as a game, it's exciting because you're always learning.
Mhm.
The decisions you are gonna make, the decisions you make have impact, but once you set it up, it kind of goes on its own. Like money makes money. Like that's why there's so many people that that do not have the resources because they live the day in a subsistence way. So where they live their day to day with some cash. The people that got the most sick and a lot of people that died were the ones that had to make lines in the banks in Lima to wait for the check to cash out the incentive that the government gave because
Mm.
they didn't even have a bank account. So think about it that way. It's a game that whether we like it or not, we're all playing. So, and the more you have, the more you make.
Yes, it's exponential. It's this
Mhm.
leverage that continues to grow and grow and grow. And I see that, firsthand because I manage a lot of money for my clients, and when I see the market go up, I'm like, "Whoa, that's a lot of money that we're making." And when it goes down, the same way. But the great thing about the stock market is that since the Great Depression, it continues to improve and increase in value, and that is because we as human beings, we're innovators. We're constantly looking for ways to improve our economy, make more money. And at the end of the day, that's what the stock market is. One thing that you said is I really loved is like, it might be intimidating at the beginning, but once you set it up, it's really not that difficult. And so,
Mhm.
that's definitely something that the audience, I want to make sure the audience understands.
Yeah, another
Don't,
thing is like, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, please.
Yeah, another thing is that you're not, I mean, I'm calling it a game. We're saying all these things. We're talking about discretionary expenses, like money that's outside of your savings, outside of your basic 401k, separate from your personal assets. Like if you like getting a house, all that comes before investing in a more risky way, not risky, but like thinking long term as investment. there's always risk to it. So like, don't put your basics at risk. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So, make sure you're maxing out your 401k if you can, getting at least a match with your employer. You
Mhm.
also want to make sure you're looking at your 401k because I also hesitate to tell people max it out. There's some 401ks that have really high expense investments in there. And so it might not make sense to max out your 401k, but it definitely makes sense to at least put enough in there to get the full match from your employer. Make sure you're growing your emergency fund, like you said.
Mhm.
And then if you want to invest outside of your 401k, because you can invest in the stock market in the 401k, right? But outside of your 401k, if you want to invest it like in a brokerage account, that's when you can start maybe taking a little more risk or playing with the money a little more if you wanted
Yeah,
to.
or real estate, or
Yes.
different like diversified way of putting money.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing your journey with money. Thank you for sharing your journey with how you've used the stock market and the fact that it's been helping you create wealth. You also are investing money for your kiddos as well, I think now.
Yeah, yeah, I was telling you that. And I got a book for him, for my 5-year-old, about investing. We'll see. I
What's
mean, I
what's the name of
don't.
the book?
Is it one from Acorns?
Okay.
You
I don't
know?
know it. I'll have to look
No,
at it.
is it
I'll have to.
the concept like the little squirrel, like saving the little? Anyway, I think I want to set them up. Like when you talk about your relationship with money, I want to set them up with like a less stressful and more and like healthier relationship with money from the beginning.
That's so
It's
awesome.
amazing like how rewarding it is to provide for your kids. I had no idea. I was like, because I don't buy that much stuff. Like we don't do fancy anything. But like when they want that and you're able to get it for them, huge, huge.
I know.
Yeah, there's nothing more fun than like get them something that they need and they want and it makes them happy. Like that's what money's for at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Money is not a goal, it's a tool, right?
Hmm.
It's a tool to help you accomplish whatever you want. And if you look at money as a goal, it becomes a really empty life because you're always going to want more. You're always going to want more. Once you get here, you're going to want more. You want 500, then you want 600, then you want a million. And I know this from experience. I've been doing this for 13 years. When people are infatuated with the value of their accounts because they're looking at it as a goal rather than a tool, it can be a very dangerous thing. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Money is a tool for happiness, not what gives you happiness.
yes. All right. Amen. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for giving the audience all those great tips. I do want to leave some time to talk about the company that you're working for, kind of the mission around it. So tell us a little bit more about the company again, if you can tell us the name again. Tell us about how it got started, the mission of it, and how can people actually learn more about it?
Yeah, thanks. I work for um, Bitwise Industries, and it was founded by Jake Soverall and Irma Holguin, in Spanish, third generation Mexican American, daughter of farm laborers, got into tech by chance and realized that on her first job, she was making more money than any of her relatives had. Check her out. She has 2 TED Talks. Amazing. And an employee, but also a son. And, one of the things I realized after I was making enough money as an employee, I was like, who do I want to work for? Right? I don't want to work for a nonprofit because I want to make a profit and I want to help others make profit. But it also has to be mission driven. It has to have like a purpose, something that excites me and that challenges me at the same time. So what we do is there's multiple branches. But the center, the focus of it is to help people from underserved communities and Black and brown people, backgrounds that can be formerly incarcerated or like somehow were blocked to remove the barriers of entry for them into the tech industry by providing coding classes, providing mentorship, providing spaces. So we have co-working spaces and we have tech buildings like tech hubs in cities like Fresno and Bakersfield, Merced, Toledo, Ohio, El Paso, Texas, cities that you wouldn't think of for tech. But the impact that tech can bring into those cities, like the jobs the job security and the economic uplift that the industry can bring to those cities is huge. So in just 8 years, the company has expanded nationally, and it's been a huge success. And I am part of the team that's opening the office in Oakland, California. So I don't know if you've been to Oakland. It's the best.
I've driven through it. Yep.
Yeah, it's the best. It already has its own thing going on. It's super diverse. It's like, Black history and also Afrofuturism, and it's like merges and lots of Latino people, and you hear mom on the street, and it's just super vibrant. And how do we bring that perspective into the tech industry? Like tech, we use tech all the time. We're using tech to record these. We all have, most people that can have cell phones all over the world. But if the people making the decisions and creating what is going to come in the tech industry don't have diverse experience and backgrounds, then how is what's created of service to everyone? So then I'm super excited about the mission. We've helped companies create all sorts of things, from applications to web pages to, workforce training programs, like anything in between. And yeah, I'm constantly inspired by my colleagues, which fuels me to do better at my job every time.
Yes.
The Oakland office actually just opened last week, not this week.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Well,
yeah. So
congratulations. It sounds like you've got a new challenge ahead of you, but from what you said, you like new challenges is what keeps you going.
thank you.
Uh,
Yeah, and I'm merging what I'm learning with my previous life in agriculture, or my connection to farmers. So that's to come soon too. Yeah, it's great.
That's awesome. That's great. I listened to the tech talk from IDMA, and I just love the way that the company is actually funding the teaching of these individuals, right? Because from what I understand, you're training these individuals, and you guys have removed all barriers of entry, like food. You'll provide food. If there's transportation issues, you guys will pick them up and drop them off. There's all these different things that you guys are doing to really make sure that you're not just providing a place for them to arrive, but to make sure that you are removing those barriers of entry. And I also understand that the companies who ultimately are going to get these coders to work for them are also funding the education. Is that
So what happens is, after the classes are super affordable, $250, and
Mm,
that could be waived if you send an email, And but then once you're in, you're part of the ecosystem. And if you succeed in the class, that's a few weeks, then you can get offered an apprenticeship. And the apprenticeship is paid,
wow?
full-time paid, with benefits. And
Wow.
that's a huge barrier, because if people want to, there's bazillion code camps, right? Boot camps for coding. But who can afford to take time off, pay for something? Yes, it's an investment, but very few people
Yeah.
can afford that, especially if you're supporting a family member, if are an immigrant, like you can't do that.
Yeah. No, 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 no. Yeah.
Even
People can.
myself, when I was working in coffee, like I took classes like at night on my own, and I paid for them. So I actually did make that investment. But it wasn't until I found Bitwise that I realized that I was welcome in this space. Like, you can pay your
Ah.
money and be in the classes, but if you don't know anyone who works at a company, you don't know what they do on the day to day, you don't know what the lingo is to use on your LinkedIn and your resume, like, how are you going to get in? I thought I had to be a receptionist, like,
Yeah.
all over again. And I almost did that, and I applied for a bunch of jobs, but I didn't get a call back. You know
Good.
what I mean? Yeah, I
Good.
did, of course, because I wanted to. And I was paying, at one point, I was paying for a class that was like $400 a month, because I really love data science and I wanted to get more into it. But no, when I took the Bitwise classes, it was during the pandemic, and it was the highlight of my year. It was like a lifeboat, because people were so great and so welcoming, so diverse, and it's so you could ask any questions. And those are the invisible barriers that Irma talks about, the invisible barriers into tech. It's not, it's like you can pay for a class, you can get in, but if we've all been, especially as Black and brown people and immigrants, if you have an accent, if you have a criminal record, or if you have, if you come from a background that where situation is too new, if you have a disability, like it can be hard, and how a company treats their employees is extremely important. And if you are starting your career and you hit that roadblock of not feeling welcome, like you might leave, and not contribute all your greatness into the tech industry. So
Yeah.
it's like everyone belongs, no one belongs here more than you, as their motto. And it really means like bring your whole self. And I think that's why I was successful from the beginning in this position, because I was able to do that. While in my previous jobs, it had taken me so long to manage to feel comfortable.
Yeah, assimilate and feel welcome. Well,
Yeah.
that is amazing. I am so excited to continue to see the company grow and really impact our Latino community, our black and brown community, anyone that is underserved. That is just an amazing job, and I can see why you're so excited to continue to work with Bitwise and work with them. So this has been amazing talking to you. I really want to thank you so much for your time and being here and sharing your amazing knowledge with us of how you've experienced the stock market, how you deal with money, and how you're actually succeeding and helping your family, create generational wealth. Is there anything else you want to tell our audience before we wrap up?
It has taken me a while to be comfortable with the way I do things too, like being bilingual, bicultural, like to know that those were my strengths, and that to realize that when I've been the most successful professionally is when I brought my whole self into what I was doing. So knowing your strength, which is your mixed identity, multicultural background, your experience in life, whether it was hard or not, and taking care of yourself and your mental health. I feel like as immigrants, as women, I was hustling for so long, and I saw other people, especially through the pandemic, hustle till they couldn't because of health issues. So it's like now I prioritize my health and my family and my kids, and that's being gentle to myself while I hustle. It's proven to be more sustainable. Yeah, and
Yes.
find your people. Like when I switched to, Bitwise is my people. Like most of my coworkers, and before that, it was Latino women that I admired. Like, find your boss has to be someone that you admire. Your friends have to be people that uplift you. Yeah, I think. Yeah, the
Mm.
connections, like yourself, for example, like that add to your life. Seems like you add to the life of others.
Yes.
Yeah, are the best tools for success.
Oh, Rosie, you've given us so much to be thankful there. There's a lot of really good things to unpack. Well, amiga, te agradezco
Thanks for the
mucho.
opportunity. Yeah, gracias.
You're welcome, and we'll stay in contact. Alrighty, take care.
Take care. Ciao.
Bueno, pues, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I want to go ahead and ask you to please send me any questions you may have or any topics you want me to talk about. Go ahead and send them to Nestor, Nestor, at greencardstogreenbacks.com. I actually read every email you send, so I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to head over to greencardstogreenbacks.com for the show notes for this episode and really links to any resources we may have discussed. Bueno, amigos y amigas, nos vemos pronto. Let's go make those greenbacks.